Calm down everyone, calm down. Yes, I'll show you how to make the dragon. It seems you've all gone crazy for this incredibly simple little project that I showed off in one of my shorts recently, and I have been itching to do some dragons. So yeah, for those of you who've not done dragons before, let's start with this one as it is possibly the easiest. Let's see how we get on. Right, for those of you who haven't done dragons before, of course you can put anything you like. Once you've got a mould like this one, see there's bits of gold still in here, but once you've got a mould that you like, you can do anything. You can put flowers in them, you can put glitter in them, you can do what you like. But I thought I'd show you how to do this one for our first in my dragon series, simply because you've all gone crazy over it, where I've shown it off on TikTok and in YouTube shorts and on Facebook reels, because I just wanted to show people it being demoulded. So yeah, by popular demand then, we'll start with this one. So if you've not done dragons before, what you're going to need is, first of all, a mould, unless you're a master mould maker and can make your own. I would say ideally look for a shiny mould. You can see there's bits of the gold from last time still inside this one, but where the rubber is exposed, it's shiny. If you have one that's more of a matte finish, you'll get a matte finished thing out of it. So for things like dragons, I'd say wherever possible you're probably going to want shiny, unless you're looking for more of a matte finish. It's up to you, but this is the effect of the shiny. That hasn't been varnished or anything, by the way. That is just how it comes out. Now normally I would be using a really small brush and putting the mica in different colours in different areas. We'll come on to doing that in later videos. You can get some incredible colour flip effects and all sorts. But for today, we are just going to be doing like I did with the little gold guy, and we're just going to be painting in one of the Let's Resin metallic powders. Now, I've picked the bronze one this time, just so we've got something different to the gold that I used previously. These come in a little pack from Let's Resin. There's 3 different shades of gold. There's a silver that I can't find. Oh yeah, there it is. There's the silver. Silver. And then there's this bronze colour, which I really wanted to try. So I'll put you the link for those. I'll put you the link for this little mould as well. There are loads of dragon moulds out there though, so have fun picking one that you like. So if you've not used mica powders before, I'll explain. They're a very, very fine powder. Let me take the top off. I've got you zoomed in quite close so you can see here. I'll step it back a little bit shortly perhaps. But I don't know if you can see in there, maybe the light's not so good for it, but it's a very fine powder. I'll get some out on my brush. And you can use mica powders to mix with the resin, so you get a solid chunk of that colour. Or a lot of them you can actually paint onto the surface of the rubber. And then when you pour in your resin, it will kind of bond with the mica powder. So what we've got here is this mica powder is now actually, it won't chip off. That is not painted on the surface anymore. It has actually bonded into that black resin. So it's going nowhere. You don't need to varnish it. As you can see, I'm rubbing it with my thumb and nothing is coming off. See? Dirty hands, but nothing is coming off the dragon. So this is so easy to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a bit and we're going to brush it around inside the mould. And because we're doing it all one colour, I can just go crazy. You only need a little bit. It goes an awful long way. If you have put too much in, don't panic. You can tip the mould upside down and give it a tap. Or you could just leave it. Now I left it with this one and I got this fantastic marbled effect because all the surplus that isn't stuck to the rubber will just waft up onto the surface like that. So here we go, let's keep going. So I'm just getting a bit more on my brush, just making sure I get it all over the mould. Getting it into all the nooks and crannies. Hopefully you can see that. And as I'm doing it all one colour, it ain't going to take long to do. Just any old paintbrush, by the way. I tend to use nice soft ones. And you're rubbing it in because you're wanting it to get right into those nooks and crannies, and you're almost burnishing it onto the surface of the silicone. So but try to get into, there's some little awkward little bits here, trying to get into all of the little nooks and crannies. Of course, because it's soft, very soft silicone, this rubber, if you can't get into some bits, just bend it. There you go. Now when we get on to the future videos, I'll show you what happens when you start putting different colours in. It's quite clever in that you can't, well, you can kind of mix them, but if you put another colour over the top of this, you just won't see it, because this has already sealed its place on the surface, which gives you all sorts of weird opportunities, really. You can do all sorts of funky things with it, knowing that. But if you didn't know that, the first time you start messing with colours, you'll suddenly find that it doesn't do what you expected it to do. Because what you have to remember is you're painting this from the inside. So whatever you put on top of this is inside. It isn't going to stick to this mica layer. You're not going to see it. What might happen is it'll just float up as surplus onto the bottom, like happened with my gold on the other dragon, which is fine because you end up with a pretty looking bottom, don't you? But it's a bit of a waste of mica powder. So I'll show you on the next one how that kind of works. I've got some new dragon moulds that I haven't used yet as well. One of them in particular I want to make a big wall plaque with, and I might actually just do that in this bronze. I'm not sure. Oops, going everywhere. I'm not sure yet. I have just been making a video as well. Isn't that lovely? Look, it's going even nice on my mat. I've been making a video on the different types of mica powder, including this one. I've made a load of them with even heat reactive, thermochromatic it's called apparently, heat reactive ones, and yeah, and the chameleon flakes and things like that. So I'll start uploading bits of that when I can as well. But we will be using lots of different types of mica powder and various other things in this dragon series. So you'll be able to watch what goes on with them anyway. But for anybody who's not encountered mica powder before, it might be a useful watch, that other video. Trying to, you can see bits I've missed. His tail's a pest. There you go. You have to make sure you get into all the little corners. Right, and then this time I'm going to do that and get the surplus out. Now as you can see, there's quite a lot of surplus. It's gone all over my mat. I could try and get it back into the pot, I suppose. Can't see that working. Instead what I'll do, I've got some little dragon scale moulds here. These are dragon scale cabochons. So why not paint it in there? Why not? Got a little bit left, look, so. And I'll get one of my Wonder Wipes and clean my mat up in a moment. Ultimately I do put the mats through the washing machine. I don't know whether that's a good thing to do or not. With an old scruffy old rough towel, and it then brings them up great, like new again. Obviously I pick all the bits of resin and that sort of stuff off because I have managed to ruin one of my other half's t-shirts already. But damp cloth, you can get the surplus off, look, if you really want to. There you go. See, look, it does come up. But isn't it amazing how it goes from what looks like a fairly ordinary brown powder into that shimmering bronze? Incredible. Now what we're going to do, and I'll put my gloves on, and my respirator and everything, is we're going to fill it just with black resin, and then we are going to leave it to cure. That's pretty much it, really. So let me grab my gloves and my kit, and we'll get that resin in there. Here we go. I've got a pot of resin mixed up. It's full of bubbles because I'm impatient. I stir too fast. The trick with resin actually is to stir slowly, and if you do that every so often as well, it starts to drop the bubbles, which is quite nice. I can spray it with I've got some alcohol spray. I've also got a heat gun. while it's not in the mould. I'm not too worried about using the heat gun. Doesn't do silicone a lot of good, you see. But I'm mixing in the colour now, and I find that starts to take the bubbles out of it as well. Don't know whether I've mixed enough here, but I can always mix a bit more. So there we go. This is kind of all an extreme close-up today. Woohoo! Good job my face isn't on camera. You wouldn't like that extreme close-up. Now, pretty sure that's not going to be enough resin. So I'm just going to add a little bit more and stir it up a bit more. If you're fairly new to resin, you do need to mix it fairly accurately. You wouldn't believe that from the way I just went splosh. But there's method in my madness. I have got very good, sorry about reaching across here, I've got very good at guesstimating the ratios. I haven't had a fail for a very, very long time. But really, you know, the best way to do it, the one I use, it's the Let's Resin 1:1, and the easiest way to do it is just get 2 measuring cups and pour the same amount in each and then tip them in together. You can't go too far wrong then. If you want to know how much your mould actually really genuinely needs, so you can be a lot more accurate about it, of course you could fill it with water first and measure it when you pour it out. Just make sure to get your mould thoroughly dry first before you then go putting your resin in. Resin doesn't like water at all. I should imagine the water doesn't take it too personally. It probably doesn't like the resin either. There we go, just pouring it in. Now what will probably happen is bubbles will get trapped in all sorts of silly places. So I'm going to give it a squish and a tap to try and knock the bubbles out. Now can you see what's happening with the surplus mica powder? How it's coming up to the surface. It's rather nice actually, I could just watch that for ages. Yeah, it just comes up to the surface and plays on the surface. So you do end up with rather a pretty underneath. Any self-respecting dragon should have a pretty underneath, shouldn't it? Don't you think? Should have saved a bit for doing these little cabochons, shouldn't I? You see, there's bubbles starting to come up. Now don't worry if you overspill slightly, over pour slightly. As the bubbles come to the surface, it will settle and you'll find it will drop very slightly. It doesn't tend to shrink very much. So let's just sit and watch bubbles pop for a bit, shall we? Will I see if I can get enough out of this pot to do these cabochons. There we go, I'm just popping a few of the bubbles as they come to the surface. Yay, I've got enough out of my pot to do these couple of the cabochons. Not that it matters, that's just a little, you've always got to have something to do with bits you've got left over, haven't you? I had got a tiny bit of black resin surplus. Not enough to do them all, but enough to do a couple of them. There we go. Now, so give it a bit of a squeeze, particularly here, because that's where that tail is. And what I'm doing is trying to encourage any bubbles out. There you go, there's one. There's one. But there will be micro bubbles in there too. Now, what you can do is part fill it and do some tapping and a bit more squeezing. If you find bubbles become a problem, to be honest I don't worry too much about bubbles, but if they're on the outside of this it will spoil that gold effect. But if you do find they're a problem, do more of the squeezing. Squishy wishy, as Steve McDonald calls it. Do watch his videos, he's very, very good with moulds, amongst other things. So do some squishy wishying, and then if you're very careful and don't go near your silicone, you can zap it with a heat gun. but there is a danger of damaging your mould if you do too much of that. So lately I'm trying to be good and use an alcohol spray. This is isopropyl alcohol. That little cabochon's gone over the top. Ooh. I'm just going to scrape them across. There we are. That might give me enough to do the other two actually. Let's pinch a bit. There we are. Sorry, this is all going on off camera, isn't it? Just messing. Right, yes, isopropyl alcohol. You can use it for all sorts of things to do with your resin. It's good for cleaning up and all sorts. But if you spray it onto the surface, it also, you can see it going, it starts to pop bubbles. So what I might do is pop back in, give it 20 minutes, 10 minutes first, I don't know. Pop back every 10 minutes for a little while and just spritz the surface like so. The heat mat's on, otherwise I wouldn't be worrying about it for half an hour or more. I bet deeper pours as well, they do cure quicker, so I bet in half an hour this will have gone quite firm. So I'll come back and check on it a little bit sooner, I think, sooner rather than later. Yeah, let's do that. So I'll see you in a bit. Right, you'd all been asking for this. Another dragon is born. It's demold time. Well, no, it's not. It probably would be demold time in a few hours, actually. He's still slightly bendy and soft here and there, but I've started pulling it away from the sides. I think we can do this. I think we can do this. And I'm being impatient as always. And I'm still being bugged by people wanting to see it. So, you've seen how easy it is to make. Let's go for it. That's going to be the tricky bit, so let's do that first. That's his Ickle tail. See, it's still bendy. I think there is some merit in demoulding while they're slightly bendy. This might be a bit too bendy. Some moulds will pop out a lot easier if you're a lot patient and give them the full time. I think more little detail-y bits, sometimes if it's bendier, it might be easier without breaking bits off. So look, as you can see, we've had bubbles pop on the base. There are still a few bubbly pop marks. Don't care. You're still bendy, and you can see where the excess mica powder has come up onto the surface here. Not too bothered about that. In fact, I think it's rather nice. That could be a whole project in itself. Anyway, here we go. Are you ready? Pop! And here we go. The other exciting bit. Ta-da! Oh, 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 love him. And I think with this one, I've done a lot better with popping the bubbles, because on the plain gold one, I did end up with, can you see here, there's a little hole, that was a bubble. I have filled it with some gold, but I'll fill it again. There were a few, that might be the only bubble. Anyway, I'm not seeing any bubbles on this guy. Oh, I love the colour. I love the colour. I will be colouring his eyes in, and then I'll do you a little update when that's done. We have the bronze dragon. Actually, you know what? I don't think that's bronze. Now I'm seeing it out. I think it is rose gold. Don't know. Gonna do a whole family of them. I'll do a silver one at some point. Next project then on the dragon front, I think will be this little one. Simply because this is a really cheap mould that you can get from loads of different places. It's not shiny, so your mica powders aren't going to work that well in it. We're going to need to take a completely different tack with this one. But I make loads, they don't cost me much to make, and they sell. So I think this will be the next one for you. Thank you for watching, and you know, do hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of the dragons. And anything else. In fact, I do requests, so do pop your requests in my comments, and I'll see you soon. Happy crafting.